Hi, due to some technical difficulties, we're going to be doing this without the camera today. Later this week, the Canadian Parliament will be reopening following a truly stupid move by Emperor Harper that nearly tore this country apart. Instead of doing something constructive about the economy like he said he would, Harper and the Conservatives decided to gut funding to, among other things, the opposition parties. This would effectively bankrupt them, and Harper knew it. So, not surprisingly, the Liberals, NDP, and the Bloc were outraged and joined forces to all but boot Harper out of power. Knowing that he was in trouble, that little chicken shit Harper talked the Governor-General into suspending Parliament for a couple of months, and here we are. While some of the initial dust is settled, it's still amazing that a lot of Canadians actually supported Harper over this. When Canadians were fighting each other over this thing in December, a poll was taken which revealed that over half of the people in this country literally had no idea how our system of government works. This would certainly explain some of the comments I heard, which I'll get into in a minute. The thing that's really astonishing, though, is some of what they got wrong. For instance, most Canadians seem to think that we actually vote for the Prime Minister directly, but anyone who's voted in an election knows that this isn't true. This leads me to wonder, how many of the people who are calling the coalition undemocratic or illegal have ever actually voted in their lives? You see, Canada's government is what's called a parliamentary democracy. In plain language, this means that when elections are held, people don't vote for the government, they vote for a particular person who will speak for them in Ottawa. The government is made up of the party with the most seats, not necessarily the party with the most overall support, which is why the Tories are now in power with less than half of the popular vote. Whew, try saying that 3 times fast. Therefore, the government is only in power as long as most of Parliament votes for what they do. Once the government loses a major vote, such as the budget, that's called a non-conference vote, which basically means that everybody in Parliament is firing the government on behalf of the rest of us. When that happens, the result is an election or a coalition government made up of 2 or more opposition parties. Look up the Canadian Constitution if you don't believe me. The point is, the alliance formed by the Liberals and NDP is not only completely legal, but is actually a more accurate reflection of how the public really voted. But you'd never see a bunch of control freaks like the Harper government admit to that, so they've been spending the last 2 months lying to the public about it. In addition to the bullshit about it being illegal, they claim that the coalition is un-Canadian, given that it involves the separatist Bloc Québécois. Now, leaving aside for a minute that our current government was formed partly by a Western separatist party, I should point out that every government since the Bloc's creation, including Harper's, has consulted the Bloc on several matters. Harper's hypocrisy about the coalition is even more interesting when you consider that on September 9th, 2004, he was actually forming one himself when he was in opposition. By the way, guess who one of his partners was? The Bloc Québécois. So Canada, when the government tries again to force its lies down your throat, keep in mind that they are, as usual, saying one thing and then doing another. For instance, one of their ministers, John Baird, recently stated on television that he thinks the Conservatives can just ignore the rule of Parliament. So who's really undemocratic here? He also stated that the Conservatives can go over the head of our real head of state, Governor-General Michael Jean. Who's really being criminal and un-Canadian, especially when that's very close to high treason? Finally, who really isn't up to the job when our so-called Prime Minister literally has to be threatened into helping his countrymen? People, we must stand on guard for this country and each other, otherwise all the freedom that we supposedly stand for means nothing. Canada would be anything but glorious and free. Enough said.